Hello and welcome to my December reading wrap up. I was not going to make this video due to how hectic life has been, hence me missing an entire bookcase that used to sit here, but I got bored and it is almost 11 p.m. so I thought to myself, why don't I film my December reading wrap up? So that's what I'm doing. In December I read 11 books, which I honestly did not expect, but I didn't have much going on at the time. The first book I read in December was Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't like it, but I also wasn't too surprised because I assumed I wouldn't. This book follows Harriet, who gets visited by Nolan, who is the ghost of Christmas past, and he is going to take her through her past to try and figure out what event caused her to not be able to move on. I don't really know, I haven't read the original Christmas Carol, but like to be a better person, I guess. The whole time Harriet's like, this can't be right, there has to be a mistake, I'm a good person, I've never done anything wrong. And Nolan, who's Irish, is like, that can't be right. Nolan is Irish, has been dead for over 200 years, I think, and he's like, that can't be right, there's never a mistake, the system's never wrong. The system was wrong, and without spoiling, I feel like everyone and their mother has read it, but without spoiling, there was a mistake in the system and they were always fated to meet, and this book was fun but didn't really have much going for it. I don't know, personally, like there's this whole bit where, because Harriet loves Christmas and Nolan's a Scrooge, which I too would be a Scrooge if I've been dead for 200 years and I'm still stuck with pesky annoying humans every Christmas. But like, Harriet loves Christmas, and so she wears these different Christmas pajamas, and he's always like, what are those? Ladies back in like, it's not presented that way, but it very much to me came across as him being like, ladies back in my days used to never wear shorts. Why are you wearing shorts? And she's like, I got these from Abercrombie. Like, this is a literal scene from the book, and it was kind of cringe. It's okay. Like, there was really nothing much. For me, there was nothing much going on. Moving on to Accomplice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. This was also a tad bit of a disappointment. And my thing is, I loved these books, but it felt a bit long. It felt like it was trying to do too much for the page count. At one point I couldn't keep up with what character was who. It was throwing all these like curveballs at me and I couldn't keep up. I'm like, slow down. But like, I do truly love these characters and I love this book. That, like, I remember somebody being like, oh my god, the plot just at the end is crazy, and I'm like, I figured it out from the first 13%. So I think for the first two books, Good Spirits and Accomplice to the Villain, it's one of those cases where, because I love other works by this author and I love existing in the universes that they create, it didn't really upset me, but if this were a book by another author, I might have DNF'd it. Moving on, we have Tourist Season by Bryn Waver, and this is an unexpected one for me because I did not expect myself to like it. I read it kinda because I was like, I want to step away from cringy feel-good romances, honestly, and I thought this would be good. It is set in a book called Cape Carnage, and there's basically this woman who is a murderer, and she essentially murders people that come to this town and cause problems, and she's kind of the protege of an older serial killer who's he has dementia, I think, and so he's losing his mind a little bit, and she helps him stay on track. And actually, the first book I read this month, Good Spirit, had Harriet and Nolan. This book is Harper and Nolan. So Harper is the murderer, and then Nolan is, I don't know if he's a serial killer, but he's also a killer who many years ago was in a hit and run with his brother. His brother passed away, and he believes Harper to be the girl who killed his brother, except Harper allegedly drove her car off a cliff after the crash. So he's a bit confused because she was pronounced dead many years ago, but is it her? Is it not? And then they end up kind of having like a begrudging friendship, which leads into a budding romance. Usually in these cases, I'm like, oh, is there romance here? It's unnecessary. But honestly, it didn't really take away much from the story for me. It didn't add that much because I do think at this point, it's not really too much like love. I don't know if I'm remembering wrong. It does feel a bit more lusty. Like, they care for each other for sure, but I don't think it's this I can't live without you kind of relationship. And there's also a guy who is coming to this Cape Carnage town who is trying to expose a serial killer in it, and he is assuming that the older man that Harper is kind of a protege of is the serial killer from the 80s or 90s, but Harper insists very much that it is not him. My next book was also a disappointment. This gets better, I promise. It was the most wonderful crime of the year, and it really was a crime. This book was a crime to me. This book follows two people that I cannot remember their name because I don't want to remember their name. And the main girl is a massive fan of a mystery thriller writer called Nour. And one day, after a very long, traumatic, tumultuous divorce, she receives a dramatic, mysterious invite to an estate in the middle of nowhere in England, along with another writer from the same publishing company. I don't know much about this guy. I don't even know what genre he writes. It's just that the main Maggie. That's what her name was. Except that Maggie constantly refers to it as guy in leather jacket genre. I don't know what that means. Make of that what you will. They end up going to this mysterious place, and of course it's Eleanor's home, and she's kind of created this Knives Out cast thing where she's brought a bunch of eccentric people. Some of them relates to her, one of them's like a lawyer, one of them is an inspector, and then Eleanor goes missing, and it's one of those, I believe it's called like a closed room mystery, where how did Eleanor leave if the door was locked from outside and there are no ways out from inside the room unless you jumped from a high story. This book was bad. It was just bad. Maggie infantilizes herself so much. There's a scene literally, like, she allegedly hates Ethan or Eric. Ethan. I'm gonna go with Ethan. If it's wrong, you're called Ethan now. She literally constantly claims for the first 20% that she hates Ethan and his leather jacket and all that and yada yada. And then like 20% in, they kiss or something like that. And then somebody breaks into her room, steals her stuff, and all she can think of, and this is from the book, when was the last time she saw Ethan? Because she needs him. He infantilizes her. It's gross. It's giving father-daughter. I don't want to talk about it. I've said enough. Moving on to a book I enjoyed, On the Bright Side by Anna Sortino. This follows a deaf girl who is moving to a mainstream high school after her deaf school is shutting down, and there she meets another guy who kind of gets assigned to be like her, like a buddy system kind of thing, except he is getting sick and he doesn't know what's wrong, and he's on the football team and he keeps on falling and having accidents, and so the boys on the soccer team aren't being very kind to him, and so they kind of also form a begrudging friendship where she's like, I don't want your pity, and he's like, everybody else is pitying me and angry at me, so they kind of find that like friendship in each other. He ends up getting diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, which is actually a condition that my sister has. So it was really interesting seeing it from the perspective of a teenage boy when my sister got diagnosed in her mid-20s and is a girl, because they do present quite differently. It was also really interesting seeing the main girlie who grew up attending a school that has dominantly disabled people and disabled staff try to kind of help him figure out what life looks like now and what life will continue to look like from this point forward as a disabled person in a very ableist society. I have read Anna Sortino's other book, Give Me a Sign, and that book I did really enjoy it, but it did feel a bit more expository. Like I was like it felt like the main characters were just telling me everything that I could just be Googling instead of just like telling a fictional story, if that makes sense. But I think the author's writing improved so much from that book to this one, which I was glad to see. Next up, I started my official reread of the Addicted series by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is book one of the series, Addicted to You. This follows Lily and Lo, who are both addicts, and they hide it from their friends and family and everybody around them because to be caught means people would step in, and they would rather just enable each other and keep on going within this world of lies that they've created. This is one of my favorite series. I actually read this exact book in 2020 during COVID, during my last year of school. It's been 6 years, which is crazy because that means I graduated 6 years ago. But this is one of my favorite series. It is one of my favorite fictional worlds. I love the characters, I love the writing, I love the friendships, and the families in these books are everything to me, and I'm not going to say any more than that because I can rant forever. I then read Imogen, obviously, by Becky Albertalli, and this was an interesting one because I haven't read Becky Albertalli in probably over 6 years. This book does one thing that I usually really don't like, but I actually enjoyed in it, which is pop culture references. I'm usually just not one for pop culture references. I think it ages a book. I don't like it. But I think it's done really well. It didn't feel like the author was a grown adult trying to pretend to be a teenager. This book follows Imogen, who is visiting her friend Lily at college, and her friend Lily is queer, and she's found a group of quirky, queer, neurodivergent friends, and she lies in a moment of panic and says that she and Imogen used to date. So Imogen now has to pretend to be bisexual in front of Lily's queer, quirky, neurodivergent friends. Except, is Imogen actually lying? Is she actually hiding? And this book has really interesting, nuanced conversations about being queer and about identity and who can tell you what it means to be queer. Imogen had a friend called Gretchen who needs to shut up, honestly. She's the kind of person who would be engaged in every single discourse on the internet. She's like a self-anointed spokesperson for the queer community, and every time Imogen's like, I think I might be queer, Gretchen's like, you're doing a disservice to all the actual queer people. This book felt really real and honest, and I really enjoyed it. I think I would have loved this as a quirky, queer, neurodivergent teenager, but I also loved it as a quirky, queer, neurodivergent adult. I then have Joy to the Girls by Rachel Lippincott and Alison Derrick. This book is a novella following the events of their first book, She Gets the Girl, and honestly, it was fine for me. I don't really remember much from She Gets the Girl. I just wanted like a Christmassy novella, and this delivered. It was too short to really connect with any characters. Like, if you haven't read the original book, you wouldn't like it. I don't really have many thoughts about these. I then read 2 Krista and Becca books. I read Dishonestly Yours and Destructively Mine, which are the first 2 books in their other series, Webs We Weave, and I loved this. I did love book 1 more than I liked book 2, but I feel like second books in a trilogy tend to have that. These books follow 2 con families, and the daughters of these families, Haley and Phoebe, have decided to go clean. They've moved to Victoria, Connecticut, a kind of small town run by the elite rich, and they run into a lot of people, they get into trouble, and they end up eventually having to pull one of their longest cons by attempting to get clean. They also have a romance between Phoebe and Haley's brother Rocky, and I really loved the gradual build-up of their relationship. We have a lot of flashbacks to when they would pretend to be couples during their previous cons, and all the complication that comes with faking so much that the line between fake and real blurs. I also just want to mention how gorgeous those covers are. Can we talk about that? This book, I think, has what KBR do best. There's the found family, there's the real family, there's friendships, there's fake dating, there's like that true soulmate love, and I can't wait for book 3. Book 3 comes out in May of this year, which is actually why I hadn't read these books until now. So I thought, I'd read book 1, and then like in a few months I'll read book 2, and then I'll read book 3 in May. But no, I read book 1 and was hooked, so I read book 2. I was also a bit nervous to read anything by Krista and Becca that is not the Addicted series or the Like Us series, but this one did not disappoint. It's different, it's unique, but it has that very distinct Krista and Becca style. There's the writing, there's a very early on in book 1, there's a line that says, we're 2 apex predators staring each other down. I'm like, that is literally quintessentially Krista and Becca. And so I read those. I love them. Unfortunately, my last read of December was not a fun one, but then I started January with a great book. You'll just have to wait until the January wrap up for those. I read Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to read these. I know for a fact that I want to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, but I wasn't sure about this one. But I was like, let me give it a try since it's chronologically before. This book follows Scarlett, who growing up always heard about Caraval, which is meant to be this big festival that's full of magic and whimsy and lies and fantasy and creativity and magic. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because honestly, it just bored me. I was bored. I felt like the book was a bit long. It was 400 pages of pretty much nothing. There was like 20% chunk in the middle of the book where I was like, oh, I'm sad. I'm interested. And then it dwindled really quickly. I think it's one of those cases that I also felt with The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year, where it's like, you know how sometimes at the end of the book when there's the grand reveal and the author's like, and the grand reveal is magic. And I'm like, that's not an answer. That just tells me that you don't know the answer either. Like in The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year, at the end they're like, oh, people have been looking for Eleanor all these years, and even some of the best inspectors / detectives have been on this case, and even they haven't figured it out. And then when they find Eleanor, they're like, how did you do it? And she goes, well, darling, I'm Eleanor. Don't do that. It's not right. Anyways, yeah, and Caraval kind of has that. Yeah. I also did not finish this in December, but I did read 40% of The Odyssey, the Emily Wilson edition, and it's funny because I got this on audiobook and it's narrated by, oh, I feel terrible, I can't remember her name, Juliet from the Romeo and Juliet movie. She's such an excellent narrator, but then I would listen to the audiobook and I would fall asleep. And then I'm like, oh, wake up. And then I would have to reread the physical book, which is why I only got 40% in. But this is a book that I've been wanting to read for a very long time. And trust, I will be done by the end of February. If I don't get through all of it in January, I will get through it in February. That is a promise. So these are all the books I read in December. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a vlog coming soon. We took a trip down south and it was fun, and I vlogged that, so I'll show you that. And then the next video should be Layla and I back together because Layla's coming back from China, if you can believe it. And hopefully by my next bookish video, I'll have my other bookcases back. Thank you so much for watching. I always get awkward at the end, but I'm also awkward throughout the video, so whatever. I love you.